We're sitting on abundant shales at depth, according to the British Geographical Survey. But should we be fracking it or leaving well alone? The fashion designer Vivienne Westwood has been touring the country to try and raise awareness about shale gas exploration, which she opposes. We'll be speaking to her in a moment, but first, here's her soapbox.
This is shale gas mining in the USA, otherwise known as fracking. It involves pumping water, sand and chemicals down a well at high pressure to fracture the rocks and extract gas trapped within them. This mining is widespread in the USA, and our government wants to do it here. Back in 2011, shale gas exploration was halted in Blackpool. A report concluded that fracking had most likely caused 2 minor earthquakes. There are also concerns that water supplies close to drilling could become polluted by the dangerous chemicals used for extraction and with methane gas, as is the case here. Fracking is an issue that concerns all of us, not just politicians in Westminster. It will lead to the production of more fossil fuels, which will hasten climate change. We need to wage war on climate change. And the first battle is to stop politicians from forcing fracking upon us. That's why I joined anti-fracking protesters at the village of Balcombe in West Sussex last year, where there were plans for exploratory drilling. 48% of British people don't know what fracking is, yet the government wants to inflict it upon us without explanation. There is no democratic mandate for fracking. David Cameron said he was going to create the greenest government ever, but has instead supported the shale gas industry.
And we're joined now in the studio by Vivienne Westwood. Welcome to the programme. You talk there in the film about the dangers of fracking, but the Royal Society and Royal Academy of Engineering have reviewed the risks, particularly the ones you talked about, tremors and water contamination. Do you agree that those health risks perhaps look less dramatic than originally thought when fracking was raised as an option?
Absolutely not. The opposite is true. This heavy volume shale gas extraction, it's only been going on for 8 years. It's a new industry. When it started, that's when everybody joined into it in America, and it was only for 8 years that this was going on. What we've found in America is that it's now plateaued, is the name, it's peaked. And so there were hundreds of people who tried to set up and get this stuff out of the ground, which they did, but now they're all getting into debt because they have to keep drilling more and more. They can't service their debt. Now then, and so it's not a success, let's just say that anyway, but that isn't what you asked me. The evidence for pollution is incredible in America, and people have been denying it, but it's the statistics and the amount of it is overwhelming.
Although the risks have been reviewed here, and they say they can be managed effectively. I mean, we've spoken to companies on the programme that feel particularly things like the risk of tremors are minimal and water contamination. But I put to you, Ken Clarke, do you think, despite what Vivienne Westwood says, it could be a game-changer here in the way many people think it has been in the States?
Oh, I think it could. I mean, we've still got to prove that it is actually extractable in the quantity that potentially it could. I think it's a no-brainer. I think we should go ahead. It's not a new technology. We've been injecting high-pressure water originally, now it's a mixture of chemicals into the geology for 40, 50 years. It can be done properly. It doesn't have these environmental hazards. I do think, whilst I think today we're a healthy democratic society, if we had today's law, today's planning law, today's debating system in the 19th century, we'd never have had the Industrial Revolution. And here we have potentially a hugely valuable national resource. It can be extracted perfectly safely, and it could make a big contribution to our economy. And we can't have a debate for years and years and years about fanciful notions of what's gone wrong, which nobody in America would recognise.
Right, I mean, Vivienne Westwood also said you're hardly the greenest government ever, which is what David Cameron promised. Do you agree? That's gone, hasn't it? I mean, did he ever say in Cabinet we've got to cut the green?
Well, we are. I'm all in favour of cutting carbon emissions. We are in favour of carbon emissions. We've signed up to targets of that. I would point out the Americans have reduced their carbon emissions going for shale gas.
No,
the Germans, who've gone for renewals on a monster scale, have actually seen their emissions go up. So it's our government is committed to international targets, but we need to pursue them in a sensible fashion that's good for our economy and affordable by future generations.
You're holding your head in your hands in despair.
I know.
Why?
Because it's all completely wrong. Everything he's just said, Ken has just said, is completely wrong. First of all, it has only happened for 8 years. You check it. High volume, this one, it's the difference between the power involved is the difference between riding a horse and cart or a turbo racing car. I mean, it's incredibly different, and that's been happening for only 8 years. Apart from which, the point about this fracking is that there are 400 times more fault lines in our little country than there are in America. Fault lines, that's what happened in Blackpool. Oh. They are a path that once the rock is fractured, then they are a path into the water table.
Which would lead to the
and
tremors.
There are thousands of these wells you would need. It would take 10 to 15 years before you get anything anyway.
Do you have any worries about it, Liz Kendall? And are you prepared to should Labour just completely, wholeheartedly back it?
I support fracking so long as we make sure that there is a robust regulatory framework. We need to do that alongside big issues like carbon capture and storage and renewables. And it was interesting what Ken said about other countries. One of the reasons why Germany has made such progress on renewables is it's got massive private sector investment alongside public investment because it has a clear long-term target. And that is the point where I think the government has fallen down. They haven't set that.
New coal plants.
Yeah, I'm talking about. I was talking about.
We're closing our coal plants. It's building 12 new lignite coal plants, which is the dirtiest coal in the world.
What I was specifically talking about was the private sector investment in renewables that they've got, which is what I support.
Fracking is dirtier than coal. It produces more pollution because of the methane leakage.
All right, we're going to leave it there, but Vivienne Westwood, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, God. Okay.